Chapter 15. Visiting Clever Ed. Tradecraft within the intelligence community refers to the techniques, methods, and technologies used in modern espionage, spying, and generally as part of the activity of intelligence assessment. This includes general topics or techniques, dead drops, for example, or the specific techniques of a nation or organization, the particular form of encryption and coding used by the National Security Agency, for example. Wikipedia 3:26-24. Kaido traced the business card of Clever Ed to the company who made it and bought their marketing contacts for a few $100s. They were a local company. He posed as a marketer himself. He was able to deduce Clever Ed's residences and chart his employment with the FBI accordingly. Then he found the man was supposedly dead. There was a funeral and everything. The trail went cold. A number of articles about a plane crash listed fatalities. Included among them were Clever Ed, whose real name was Edward Fogarty, and a man named Richard Patel, who looked just like the Indian fellow Kaido encountered earlier in the Hawaiian shirt, minus the goatee. Excluding the involvement of a time machine, the articles were in air. Both men yet lived. Kaido turned to tracing family ties, and eventually was able to track down a cousin of Edward Fogarty, alias Clever Ed, who apparently lived west of West Virginia in northeast South Dakota, just outside Aberdeen. The address was agricultural land on a lake, but there were no roads that were open. Kaido parked and hiked half a mile over a field to find two old farmhouses without residents. They looked as though they were abandoned half a decade ago. The roads blocked with wide, uninspired road construction barriers and no indication of occupation anywhere. Negotiating a loose lock on a back door, Kaido found the main house was that of a bachelor and exhibited proper disarray. It did have a forwarding address taped to the front door, but that was a nameless P.O. box in nearby Aberdeen. Barring a post office stakeout, that was a dead end for the time being. Someone must have moved recently. Kaido wrote it down anyway. The other house on the property had several stories and a bunch of dusty furniture. Kaido didn't find much, except for old tables, chairs, bureaus, and the like. No vehicles were on the premises. He was about to leave when, incidentally, his foot kicked a little bit of gravel or something, causing it to clatter and bounce across the floor, coming to rest under a set of drawers by a little table. Kaido hadn't actually seen what it was. He walked over, crouched low, shook on the phone's light, and discovered it was indeed a rock. But further on he saw something that looked plastic, about the size of his thumb. Kaido had to stretch to reach it. When he pulled his arm back, he saw that indeed it was a thumb drive. Beyond a little dust, didn't seem any the worse for wear. That was out of place, considering the circumstances. Very out of place. Kaido pocketed the drive and took a last look at the dusty old farmhouse before exhaling, defeated, and making the long walk back to his rental car. Hopefully, there was something on the thumb drive. He sat and thought a while. Clearly, this Clever Ed fellow lived up to his name. He was very difficult to find and had smartly extracted himself from the grid. Kaido would have to outmaneuver him. He would have to make Clever Ed come to him. Now, how could he do that? He needed irresistible bait and time. He knew he already had at least one of those things. Would the little digital trinket in his pocket supply the other? Kaido made his way back to his hotel room and tried to explore the thumb drive. He couldn't crack the password, but he did discover the date it was made in available metadata, and that gave him an idea. He shrouded himself in a hat, COVID mask, and sunglasses, sat back in the shadow, and put a filter on his voice. Then he held the thumb drive up to the camera and did the following. He recited the exact date the metadata gave for the drive's initialization, sometime in 2023, exactly where he found the drive, exactly how he found it, and when he found it. He then said, "Clever Ed knows what this is. Here, find me here." And he recited the address of the old farmhouse where the drive had been found. Before posting the video online, he put several smart cameras in the old house. The property was in the country, but there was enough signal he could access them on the web, thankfully. The hardest part about that move was hiding the deep cycle battery and associated cords. Again, though, Kaido had experience in stakeouts and knew the system he cobbled together would work for about a year if it had to. Hopefully he wouldn't need to wait so long. It required refreshing. The cameras were motion operated and inactive otherwise, so they could last a while. He placed several outside the farmhouse as well and along nearby roads. Once everything was set up, Kaido used public computers to upload the video and share it across all platforms he could think of, even sending links to various news agencies and spamming Chirper, or was it Z now? The company rebranded. He couldn't recall. Whatever the case, after that, he found a cash motel where nobody bothered to ID him, or clean the rooms apparently, and used the VPN to monitor the leads he put out. He was gratified to see the footage was mysterious and disturbing enough to hit a certain amount of virality. In about 3 weeks, the video earned 500,000 views across about 40 posts. He spent his time checking the digital lines he cast and keeping tags on the P.O. box to see if anybody checked in, which they did not. Within a month, Kaido had a real fish on the line. The cameras went off at the farmhouse at 2 a.m, and he tumbled out of bed to his laptop where he saw a man, ostensibly Clever Ed, though no angle caught his face, quickly go through the house, crouching here, putting his hands on his hips there, swearing, and soon leaving. On an exterior camera hid in the nook of a tree, Kaido saw the man run to about the most milquetoast car he'd ever seen. It was like those that tailed him in Japan, a nondescript gray sedan. No bright color, no black, just unremarkable, unassuming gray. Apparently, Clever Ed paid no mind to the road construction signs, if he was indeed Clever Ed. There were 2 paths the gray sedan could take once it left the blocked-off road, unless the driver were to go cross-country, which was very unlikely. Kaido's cameras were on either route, and he managed to drive halfway there by the time he got a ping from the northbound option. Kaido swerved onto gravel between fields that stretched in a straight line sure to intersect, and turned his lights off when he reached the intersection. He had to move fast now. Kaido ran to the rental's trunk, grabbed a modified spike strip he cooked up himself with epoxy nails and glass, then stretched it all the way across the road about 10 feet south of where his vehicle hid in the intersection. 2 minutes later, the gray vehicle zoomed past, all 4 tires popping loud, the driver nearly losing control, swerving madly. Kaido pulled after and kept his lights off. Fields, and more fields were the terrain, just staccato corn stalks whipping by in darkness. They were alone. The car ahead slowed but did not stop. It just kept going on flat tires until sparks spun from the rims as they sliced through the rubber. Eventually, the gray sedan pulled over, at which point Kaido turned on the rental's brights and hazards, throwing it in park and jumping out while the engine yet ran. He was savvy enough to acquire a gun, illegal though that was given his visa. He would have liked to bring the strange one he took from Ricky, but was wise enough to leave it home so he could avoid hassles at customs. Kaido knew how black markets worked, even if their flavor was a bit different in the USA. He knew he could find what he needed. In evidence of that, he withdrew the firearm and yelled, "Don't move!" He went to the door and pulled it open. "Hey, fella, hold on now. Out of car!" "Okay, just hold on, fella." And a guy got out of the car, a tall, skinny guy with a square jaw. It was not Clever Ed. Kaido's face did interesting things, but the headlights were behind him, obscuring his features, and the man he just forced out of the car had to squint. Kaido barked, "Who are you? What are you doing?" "Doing what? Where?" "You pulled me out of the car, my man. You put the spikes down, I take it. Was that you?" "Of course, Clever Ed." "Who?" "Clever Ed." "Is that a band or some kind of slang?" Kaido blinked. "I have footage. I know you were at the house." "That's the video going around online," said the man. "Like real scary spaghetti kind of stuff. Know what I mean? Some dude in a mask trying to get some other dude to do something. I had to check out the address, see if it was real. I guess you're the guy, huh?" Kaido decked him hard just at the right angle and he folded. Headlights kept him from seeing the blow coming. Kaido leaned over to make sure he was out. Then he made sure the guy was breathing. Then he crouched low and cradled his own hand, wondering if he broke something. That jaw was like a rock. Kaido was kind enough to drag the heavy body of the young fellow around to the front of the vehicle out of the road and leave the hazard lights blinking on the kid's car. Someone would find him. He did make a mistake, though. Before he turned the hazards off his own vehicle, he tossed the gun in his passenger seat, then with the same hand put the car in reverse and spun the wheel with his other. He turned around, stopped at the spike strip, grabbed it up, threw it in the back seat, and started driving south fast, the opposite direction from which the square-jawed man came. He made it about a mile, then boom! All four tiles went. And he had to swerve until his rental drifted into a ditch. He swore reflexively. Ksup! Headlights turned on behind him before he could catch his bearings, and he was suddenly hassled out of the car at gunpoint while a man wearing green sunglasses in the dark held a revolver on him. "Let's see how you like it," he said. "Hands where I can see 'em. Out of the car." Clever Ed." Kaido emerged, hands up. "Let's have that thumb drive, Tokyo." Kaido exhaled. "I have taken liberty of securing it elsewhere. So you're smarter than the average bear, I take it." "That man back there, he is in on this. My son. Good sport. But I feel about bad for the car. And apparently the knock you gave him. You didn't KO the boy, though, Tokyo. He played you." The man who was Clever Ed held out a little walkie-talkie, said into it, "I got him. Over," and put it back in his jacket, keeping the gun level at Kaido. The walkie-talkie made a muffled noise of assent from inside his coat. Clever Ed continued, "So where you had this drive, Tokyo?" "If you would tell me what I need to know, well, perhaps I will cover the cost." "Oh, you'll cover the cost. Your rental's a bust. Got anything you want in that car?" Kaido thought of the gun. "Besides the gun?" Kaido squinted. "You know your stuff, Mr. Ed. Mr. Ed's a horse. I take it no. Don't worry. We'll get you back to your Roach Motel. I'm going to give you a talking to, Mr. Kaido. You're a pretty smart fella, you know. You got all your little ducks in a row. I like that. But I don't know about you, old boy. I don't know. Put on this hood and put on these cuffs." Clever Ed tossed both to Kaido, keeping the gun on him. Kaido sighed. "So you are clever." "That's what they say." Once Kaido had the hood and cuffs on, Ed pushed him in the back seat of a crew cab pickup, tied his feet, and seat belted him in sideways so he could barely move. When he got up to speed, he hit the brakes real quick. "Hmm!" Kaido yelled through the cloth Ed had shoved in his mouth, but didn't fall from the seat. "I got you good, Tokyo. Now we just got to pick up my boy. Don't worry about this car. With the one you knocked out, I was just joshing earlier. Thing is, I got it off a junk lot. Tires were the priciest thing on it. I mean, worry about yours, sure, but if you didn't get insurance on a rental in a foreign country, boy, that's your fault anyhow." Whew, Ed exhaled. "So next thing's chloroform, and well, you might just get you a headache when you come to, so be sure and drink the water when I give it to you, all righty?" And Clever Ed roughly shoved a cloth in Kaido's hooded face with his right hand, keeping the vehicle straight with his left. "That's right. Sweet dreams, Tokyo." Kaido snapped awake with a headache and a wet face. Somebody was pouring water on him and slapping his cheeks. He gasped. He was in a little cement room with a two-way mirror, just like you would have expected of an interrogation facility in Ehime Prefecture. Was this Clever Ed guy still an operative? What was going on here? The man swam into focus. He was of average build, wore a Hawaiian shirt, loose slacks, green circular sunglasses like a Beatles album cover, a thick red mustache shot through with white hair and red hair, similarly fading. He looked like he was north of 60, definitely a bit older than Kaido. "Finally up, Buttercup. Drink this, your head's going to hurt. He threw a water bottle at him. Kaido flinched and found his hands mobile but still in cuffs. He was able to catch the bottle. He was also cuffed to a chair by the leg. He unscrewed the bottle of water and drank quickly, starting to shiver. Clever Ed turned on ventilation in the room and it suddenly got colder. He spun back around, smiled, sat down across from Kaido and said, I don't care who you are. I care about the thumb drive. Now, and this might surprise you, I don't know what's on it. I ain't got no idea. Well, but I got some suspicions. And you were right to use it for leverage, old chum. I remember that time in my life, and buddy, you made a good gambit. You just didn't count on me doing an Uno reversal on you, and that's okay. Why you guys all wear Hawaiian shirts? What guys? Clever Ed squinted. Kaido shook his head and changed the subject. You jumped on a poker table with a cat and ran away. Clever Ed blinked at him. Did I? I was at the table. Clever Ed crossed his arms. You know, I do remember that now you mention it. About 6 years back. An impromptu operation went about sideways, I'd say. Bigger chemical reaction than we reckoned. I had to make a fast exit and... Well, now I guess you saw it. It was chance? Oh, I don't know that I believe in chance. But what happened? The cat puke on your cards? No, he puked on cards of man I am looking for. Well, tough titty, son. I don't know anything about anyone at that table. Ricky told me about you. He said, well, he said many things, but he wore a shirt like yours. Clever Ed's eyebrow did something. He was a good pupil, is all that means. What did this Ricky guy tell you about me? He said you were the man in the footage jumping out a hole in the world with a cat. You're telling me there's footage of that? Kaido nodded and said, you weren't kidding about headache. Well, you're out of your pay grade, son. You'll just have to nut up. Now, I ain't gonna kill you over this drive, so don't worry about that. But you think shivering is all I got up my sleeve, son? You got another thing coming. Still, I owe you this much. Are you a bastard or an idiot? Kaido's expression was inscrutable. No. You still an inspector? Who said I was an inspector? You did, when you were talking in your sleep. Kaido blinked, then sneezed abruptly, sniffed, wiped ineffectively at his nose through the shivering, and replied, there is autistic girl. She goes through reality window, I think, through portal holes. She disappears. I put the wrong man behind bars. She reappears. I resign. Clever Ed nodded. Where is she at now? This is what I tried to find. So you're just a regular old idiot. Well, that's something. All right, hands out. And he scrounged about his pants for a key, unlocking the cuffs, then pulling off his own jacket, tossing it to Kaido, and turning off the vent. He sat back down, leaned a foot with a cowboy boot over the end of the table, and said, you know how far over your head this is? Do you have black eyes behind those sunglasses? Clever Ed took them off, rubbed the bridge of his nose, and smiled. His eyes were clear as day in winter. So you have an inkling, then, he said. I do. There's this wrinkle, though, old son. I'm done with the kind of games y'all play. You're going down a road I did 6 years ago, you know. Same old track. The salmon must go to his source to spawn. Yeah, well, I'm done crapping eggs, and I didn't get ate by a bear or die in the water, so I'm good to just sort of, putter around this little pond I'm in. I don't need to go back out to sea with the whales and the sharks. You know what I'm saying? I'm in another season, and I don't need you pulling me out of that season, I think ex-inspector, investigator, detective Kaido, as your wallet claims, if that is your real name. I think that you understand what I'm saying. Am I right to think that? What about the hoes in the wolves and the cats? Kaido finally completed zipping up the jacket and crossed his arms tightly. Clever Ed nodded. If that girl you're after found her a shift cat, she can be anywhere, any day. And if she's in the other place an hour, a month goes by. It's about impossible to track. But you see, I found you. Clever Ed nodded. You did indeed, Tokyo. And don't think I don't admire your technique. Simple, elegant, effective, but an uphill climb, certainly. How did you know I would go the way I did, so you could have put down your spikes for my tires? Yeah, I figured you'd drive the opposite direction and do a runaround to hide your tracks in the dirt. It's what I'd have done. I gambled. I also am a good gambler. Kaido looked down at the empty metal table, willing the headache away. Are you spiritual at all, Kaido? You are third person to ask me this in a month. Ed responded. I've heard this also. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. You know what that means, Kaido? Many things, I expect. It means kings, mobsters, governments, heads of religions, cults of personality, corporate overlords, salacious celebrities, sycophants, city councils, county commissions, school boards, library boards, airport boards, and the list goes on. It means wherever there's a node that influences any community, no matter how big or how small, some cheese weasel with an axe to grind is going to sneak in and start putting a stank on the bean dip. You understand me? Partially. Now, some of these cheese weasels, these idiots, are just that, idiots. But some of them are bastards, Kaido, real dirty bastards, the dirtiest you can imagine. They're worldwide idiots and bastards in high places, as old Paul said. Paul Lama. No, the Apostle Paul. That's who I was quoting from earlier in the Bible. I have not read, conceded Kaido. Clever Ed blinked at him. See, that's the thing, buddy. You have no idea what you're involved with here. You ain't got God on your side. You might as well be anybody's pawn. But my motive, pure, restore honor, save the girl. Clever Ed stood up and nodded. Then he said, well, it looks like this. Every region's got their Don, you know. Their demon Don Corleone. Sometimes he's a mobster. Sometimes it's a president. Sometimes a mobster is the good guy. Sometimes the president ain't. Sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes they're both bad or they're both good, but they got a vice president or a consigliere who does them dirty. Capisce? That's how it works. Now, the human reports to the demon, fallen angel, whatever. There's a difference that ain't semantics, but it ain't worth losing any sleep over if you're with the good guys. They're both under you. Well, so maybe you ought to worry a bit. Okay, see, the guys with black eyes, think of them like zombies. They're possessed. But you see some dude glowing, he's either a really good guy or a really, really bad guy. You'll know. That's a different story. Anyway, so the being in the other world, let's say, this otherworldly being, he runs the humans. Sometimes they're possessed. Sometimes they ain't. Depends on the kind of op they're running. Steve Gates, just a nasty, evil little dude. He wasn't possessed, I don't think. He was just scummy. But they had my son a while back, and we were barely able to get him out of the hex on it. Well, we didn't. It was God himself. Eyes black as the night and colder than Anchorage. You following me? Only God could fix that. Yes. So you're looking for this missing girl. You got anything else to go on? There is a picture of a man with balalaika and the beard. He was there in Caesar's palace when you ruined our game. Okay. What's the skinny on this guy? He's very skinny. Cleverhead blinked. What else do we know? Russian, affiliated with a Yakuza, likely through Russian mafia. He's supposed to be dead, but, well, he was at table with me when you came. So, Cleverhead nodded and finally exhaled, saying, well, I know a guy in Russia, way out in the sticks, Siberia. What's the name of that place? The Klutsk? Yakutsk. That's it. Tell you what I'll do. I'll tell you who that guy is. And he can help you figure out where this girl is and whether she's jumped through some portal or not. Let me tell you, Kaido, you need Jesus, or you're just a cow full of milk to them. Only your milk is fear. And, well, they'll hook you up to things. You don't want to think about it. You don't want to get milked. Got it? You do not want to get milked. So you find your way to this place, buddy. I'm telling you right now, you don't want it. Get you a Bible and do your homework. So how about it? You give me that drive, I give you the name of my guy. If I don't give you the drive, well, you can just go to Russia and cold call a phone book. To hell with you. It's in the safe where I'm staying. Room 303, Mustang Motel. Code 252627. Cleverhead nodded. Now, you're going to have to trust me on this one. Put them cuffs back on. Can't have you knowing where we are. Kaido said, please, not the chloroform. Look, this is so far above our pay grade, you have no idea. Please, just put the cuffs back on. Kaido sighed and did so. Ed put him under with chloroform just as he looked up. Kaido woke in his motel room with a note in his hands that said simply, Errol, U.S. Embassy, Yakutsk, get rid of this. Sorry about the headache. He checked the safe. Sure enough, the thumb drive was gone. Then he checked the front pocket of his carry-on, the only bag he brought with him. There was a packet of chips there, held tight with a clothespin. Opening it, Kaido found between crumbs the copy he made of the thumb drive nestled safely inside. He chuckled. Then his head throbbed with the chloroform hangover, and he laid back on the bed another 5 hours until he could see straight again.